Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Chris White and I head up design recruitment for Professional Technical. I've been recruiting design and development talent since 2013 and I am privileged to have worked with some of the world's leading design consultancies, healthcare and consumer technology brands. In this workshop, I'll share with you some of the insights and tips I've picked up over the years. Thank you again for joining me. My goal at the end of this session is to help you feel more confident about video interviewing and therefore improve your chances of securing a new role. Seem to be having classic Zoom technical difficulties. Right. Right, you chat amongst yourselves while I find out what's going on here. Okay, I think we're going now. So thank you for bearing with me. So important thing to mention, and we'll come on this later in. Don't get flustered when technology doesn't work. I've just given you an example of one of the things that are going to go wrong especially when you're presenting something on Zoom. I'm trying to use the technology as wisely as possible, but sometimes it just wants to fight. So don't get flustered. Just crack on. Right, here we go. So in this session, we're going to cover things to think about before, during and after your interview in order to increase your chances of success. We'll also introduce the STAR technique for answering competency-based interview questions. And finally, there'll be a Q&A session at the end. So please put your questions in the chat box and I will try to answer as many as we have time for. So let's get on. First things first, a few things to know before you start. Okay, it's all about you. Remember, it's you being interviewed and not your team. That's important when you're answering questions throughout your interview. Give quantifiable examples. If your design saved production time and the business money, how much time? How much money did you save? Okay, get those quantifiable examples in there. Do your research. So the military have a saying, it's the 7 Ps. If you've heard of that, if you know what it stands for, pop it in the chat box. But it's all about planning and preparation. Okay. And then finally, and I'll go on this, I'll talk about this a few times throughout this session, first impressions count. So according to a Harvard study of communication, it takes only 7 seconds to make a first impression on another human being. When we meet people for the first time, we make quick decisions about them based on their eye contact, appearance, handshake, and verbal and non-verbal cues. Video is no different. So make sure it counts. Okay, so it's time to do your research. The kind of information you might want to find about the company you're going to interview for may include things such as their mission and values, a quick Google search or LinkedIn search of your interviewer, what industry they're in, market position and competitors, products and services, history of the business and the team that make up that company, what challenges, opportunities and recent newsworthy topics are available. So your recruiter should be able to help you with a lot of this, but you also find Google News, LinkedIn and the company's website very helpful. With the sheer amount of information available these days, there simply is no excuse for not having at least one answer to so tell me, what do you know about us? So, I mean, I've got an example of Professional Technical on there. All we've done there is search the company. It's come up on LinkedIn. And immediately you've got enough information on there to at least kind of fumble your way through so tell me what you know about this question. You could tell them that some of the employees that work there, you can click on that and see a list of them. You can talk about some of the jobs and the videos that we've posted, the news stories. So there's loads of information there on a lot of companies. So yeah, do check that out. Okay. So you've researched the company, but what about the job itself? So the recruiter, whether that's an agency recruiter or the internal recruiter, should be able to provide you with a job description. And these can be a mixed bag, ranging from 3 or 4 must-haves through to job spec equivalent of War and Peace. So speak to the recruiter and find out exactly what the client has told them. What are they really looking for? Okay. Review the job description and think about examples you can give to demonstrate that you're able to do what the job requires. Don't worry if there are a few things in the responsibilities or requirements that you haven't experienced in. Try and demonstrate your transferable skills and interest in applying them in that area. Most employers are happy to fill small skills gaps with training. SolidWorks courses, for instance, are fairly cost effective and minimal time investment. But if you can demonstrate you've got the right attitude and there's a good cultural fit, then they're more than happy to fill kind of the odd skills gap. It's easier to train someone in a skill than it is in an attitude. So keep that in mind. Again, LinkedIn can be helpful here too. So if you're going for a design engineer role, check out who else works there as a design engineer. What background do they have? Do you know any of them? It might give you some clues as to what the client is looking for. So if half of their team are ex-Dyson, let's say, and I use them as an example a lot, but let's say they're all from Dyson, and you've spent some time working at Dyson. One, you might know someone that's there, but two, if you've worked there as well, there's a good chance that that kind of background and that experience is exactly what they're looking for. Okay, so it's time for some self-reflection. Be honest and assess your strengths and weaknesses. If you can't think of any, ask your brother or sister. They'll soon tell you. Or an ex-employer or colleague or a friend that you've worked with. So if they're really friends, or if they hate you enough, like your brother or sister, they'll soon kind of be able to list a bunch of weaknesses. Just please don't be that person that goes into interview and says that their only weakness is that they don't have any, or that they sometimes work too fast. If you're unorganised or your spelling isn't great, that's fine. Acknowledge the weakness and explain what you do to compensate, such as planning software, spell checkers, getting someone to proofread your work. It's the same with strengths. Back it up with examples. So how does that strength impact on your ability to work? Ask yourself what things are most important to you when it comes to your career and company you work for. Money's fine, but what else is important? Are you interested in the technology? What else? Progression? Fine. What else? Keep going. Does what the company are offering meet any of those factors, either short or long term? And assessing what's important to you will help with the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? It's a classic interview question. The interviewer will be looking for clues that you're likely to stick around for a long time. So get that prepared. Make sure that you know your CV inside and out. So it might sound basic there, but your interview will be picking it apart. So make sure you're prepared to explain that 6-month gap, or the fact that you've had 4 jobs already this year. There's only so many times you can use 2020 as an excuse, and just be prepared to talk about it. If with a lot of us had a rough year, then be open and talk about kind of how you're going to apply the previous experience into kind of performing the role that you're interviewing for. You might want to think about rehearsing an elevator pitch, because first impressions count, right? So most interviews will start with a "so tell me about yourself" question. And here's your chance. In no more than 60 seconds, introduce yourself, summarize your experience and your key skills, and express your interest in the role. If this is done right, it's very impressive and a great way to start an interview. So practice it, record it, kind of do it in front of your brother or sister. Finally, practice the STAR technique, and I'll come on to that in a bit more detail. So it's basic, but make sure you know what date, time, and video platform your interview is on. Get that in your diary, set reminders. There's been no excuses, the amount of technology we have available to us for forgetting any of that detail. Have a copy of your CV and some crib notes ready, and write down your interviewer's name and job title. The great thing about a video interview is that you can literally have as many notes around you as you can hide from the camera. So there's no excuses for getting the interviewer's name. It's on the post-it note stuck to your monitor, and often it'll be on their name as well on Zoom. But if they've logged in on a company account, it might just be a bunch of numbers or a random email address. So write it down just in case. And whilst you write things down, make a list of questions you like to ask. There's a bunch of example questions available on our website if you'd like, or just email me and I will reply with them attached. We'll go through a few examples later as well. Next point in there, check the technology works kind of well in advance. Make sure you're familiar with it. And then finally, grab a glass of water, because you don't want to be interrupting the session to go and grab a glass or choking up. So have one ready. Okay. So technology. If you haven't used it before, familiarize yourself with the software that you're going to be using. So popular platforms are Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Teams and Google Meets. Although Facebook, Skype, WhatsApp, etc., they all have video functions, but you're more than likely to be using Teams or Zoom. Now, it's worth noting that if you don't have a Microsoft Office 365 account, or you don't access it through work, you may not be able to load a test meeting. However, you are able to join the meeting once you have the link from the client. So if they send it in advance with enough time, you are able to join the meeting on your own and make sure that you know where all the buttons are and you know how to share a screen, all that kind of stuff. And just make sure you've downloaded the software or the app to your tablet beforehand. Failing that, enlist a friend or a recruiter that may have access to Teams and get them to send a link. Just take the panic out of it. Make sure you've downloaded the latest version of whatever software it is. So don't take it for granted that your computer is going to automatically update. Make sure it's as up to date as possible, and that you've got your microphone and camera switched on, and that you know how to share your screen. So on Zoom, it's a big green button at the bottom. On Teams, I think it's a purple one, but they're all different. So make sure you give yourself enough time to have a play around, or at least Google how to use it. They're going to probably want to show off your portfolio, so knowing how to share that is going to be quite important, I guess. If possible, try and position the camera so that your upper body is in shot. No one wants to just see a head. So body language is important in a meeting, and video is no different. So try and get your hands in there as well if possible. You've got to make this as real an experience as virtually possible. And then another tip: use the gallery view on the call so that you can see everyone. You can see the panel, you can see how they're reacting, you can react to how they're reacting. You can kind of try and mirror them if you like, kind of with nodding or body language. But you can't do that if you can't see them. And yeah, just to reiterate, you're not on your own here. So speak to your friends, speak to recruiters, whoever it is that might be friendly enough to help you out if they can help you test the technology works, or do a dry run of your presentation. Okay. Top tip: share an internet connection. Ask your family or housemates not to stream or download during your interview. So nothing like a bit of buffering to ruin your interview flow. So ask your family or housemates if they wouldn't mind saving that next episode until after your interview. Okay, let's get into the zone now. And again, first impressions count. So get set up in a calm, distraction-free environment. Put your phone on silent. Turn off Skype, Teams, or whatever your workmates use to contact you. Make sure that the kids are occupied and there's a no entry door on the sign on the door. I think we'll remember this guy. Don't be that guy. Dress to impress. It's an interview, not a meeting. You can still wear your slippers, but make sure it's business from the waist up, guys. Okay. Make sure the room is tidy, but don't hide the guitar. Don't shy away from showing off some of your hobbies in the background. They can be great icebreakers. Alternatively, if you don't want to share your background, just use a plain one. Use a sheet or a wall or a virtual background, that's fine. I've got a green screen, but again, just using that to facilitate the virtual background there. Finally, think about lighting. Most video calling apps are pretty good at adjusting the lighting, but you might want to stick a lamp to the side of the screen, and that could add a nice kind of touch of professionalism to the call. Another top tip: don't worry, sometimes things don't go to plan, but that's okay. As I demonstrated earlier, and I promise you that was not part of the plan to start with a fumbled kind of technology faux pas. It does happen to the best of us. So if you're having technical problems or you're running late or anything like that, don't worry. Just call the recruiter or the interviewer and let them know. It's important that you just let them know. And yeah, just don't worry. Take a deep breath, calm down, and crack on. Okay, your nerves are more likely to ruin your chances of securing that job than having to interrupt the interview to answer the door for a delivery, or usher a child out of the shot, or chastise the nanny for letting the kid run in when you're interviewing on the BBC. Just apologise, laugh it off, and make some comment about how this would never have happened in 2019. Okay, so the interview started. Let's get your body language right. Smile and maintain eye contact. Look at the camera if you can. Sit upright or stand. Get more air into your lungs by opening your diaphragm. I like to stand when I'm presenting. Just where I am at home, I don't have the space to do that and get into the shot properly. So failing that, just sit upright. You'll get more air in there. You'll fill your head and you feel more confident as you do it. Use your hands as you talk. Obviously don't kind of go around like a puppet from the words escape me. Just don't look like a puppet. And look interested, nod and agree in moderation. So yeah, not like a nodding dog, but like you would be in a meeting, you're having a conversation here. So show that you're interested. Support your answers with evidence, facts, figures, and examples. Preparation is key for this. And again, there's no reason why you can't have your facts and figures written out in front of you and on a post-it note around your screen. Ask questions, but save some for the end. You don't want to be that person that doesn't have anything to ask right at the end. And right at the end, say thank you. Just be polite and remind them that you're keen on the role. Going back to questions, as I said earlier, check out our website or drop me an email and I'll send you over a bunch of questions, example questions. In the meantime, though, here's a couple of ideas for questions to end with. And again, I'll share these with you, but here's the first one. Have I sufficiently answered all of your questions? Would you like me to explain anything further or give any more examples? If they say no, great, you've nailed it. However, if they come back with follow-up questions, then now's your chance for another go. So that's a good question to ask. This next one, this one's for Brave, because this will kind of put your interview on the spot, but in a good way. So here we go. Is there anything I've said that makes you doubt I would be a great fit for this position? I'll say that again. Is there anything I've said that makes you doubt I would be a great fit for this position? It's very difficult not to give instant feedback on this question. It kind of puts the interviewer on the spot. But if they say that there's nothing, then that's surely a good thing. If they do give you feedback as to why you might not be a good fit, then there is your chance to counter that if appropriate. Okay. Moving on. Please stop doing these things. Now, this list is not exhaustive, and a lot of them are fairly common sense, but some of these things may cost you the job. So basically, try and be positive and professional throughout your interview. If anything goes wrong, just, again, remain professional and positive. Laugh it off. It happens. We're in a world of being interrupted by deliveries and doorbells and cats and all sorts. It's just normal. It's fine. So don't let it affect you. I'm going to pick on a few of these points. I'm not going to read through them all because you're more than capable of reading, but picking on a few. Money, hours, benefits. Those are kind of things that you want to speak to the recruiter about before you go in for the interview, or kind of feeding back after the interview, or wait for the client to bring it up. It's unusual for money and conditions to be talked about at the first stage because they're interested in assessing whether you're right for the role. On the second stage, they're often it'll be more interested in whether the role is right and the business is right for you. So that's when conditions and money will come up. However, if you're working a 60-hour week and you want some of your life back, that's a good motivation for moving on. But don't make that kind of seem like the only reason that you're interested in that job, because a lot of jobs that you'll be going for will be offering a reduction in hours and a increase in your work-life balance. So look at the other reasons that you'd be interested in that position or you'd be looking to move on. And then moving on to the last point there, not discussing the opportunity with your family. You'd be amazed at the amount of people who go for an interview and even get offered jobs and they haven't even spoken to their partners about it. Even when it requires relocation or working away or weird shift patterns. You go through all that effort to get a job, to go through the interview process, to go sit in sessions like this, and then you don't even talk to your other half. And surprisingly, they don't want to move to the other side of the country. So you've not even not been offered the job, you just can't accept it. So that's possibly the worst reason to not get the job. So just talk to people. It's great. Okay, now for the STAR technique. Competency-based questions, they're very common in interviews and not always specifically related to the job description. So they can be fairly hard to prepare for because you're not going to pull out kind of stuff from the job description and think about questions about that. They can be fairly vague. They're designed to make the interview as objective as possible, and they're specifically looking for kind of examples. So they all ask candidates the same questions, and then they'll rate the responses. So it removes any bias in the process, in theory. And competency-based questions often start with, tell me about a time when. Now the trick is to use quantifiable answers, and the STAR technique, which stands for situation, task, action, result, is a very simple but extremely powerful tool to help you structure your answers and avoid waffling. So let's look at an example. So I've borrowed this from the Guardian website, because why not? Tell me about a time that you solved a problem to a tight deadline. Okay, to answer this, we'll break our answer into 4 sections. Situation, so you set in the context of your story. Task, what was actually required of you. Action, what you did. Result, and what was the end result. So remember to speak in specific terms and quantify success. So I'll give you an example kind of answer to that question. So tell me about a time that you solved a problem to a tight deadline. So you break it down into 4 sections. So situation, we were due to be delivering a presentation to a group of 30 interested industry players about our new product, and Stuart, the guy due to deliver it, got stuck on the train from Birmingham. Task, it was my responsibility to find an alternative so it didn't reflect badly on the company and we didn't waste the opportunity. Action, I spoke to the event organisers to find out if they could change the running order, and they agreed, so we bought ourselves some time. I contacted Susan, another member of the team who had a push could step in. She agreed to drop what she was doing and head over to the event. The result, Stuart couldn't make it to the meeting on time, but we explained the problem to the delegates and Susan's presentation went well. It's a bit rough around the edges, but well received. Stuart managed to make it for the last 15 minutes and to answer questions. As a result, we gained some good contacts and at least 2 of them converted into paying clients. So very quickly, you've built together a very concise answer. There's no waffle. And by breaking it down into those 4 sections, now you're not going to be saying situation, task, action, result. You're not a robot. That bit's in your head. But thinking about the setup gives you a bit of thinking time. It should reduce the umming and ahhing because you're thinking about the next sentence, as you say in the current one. And it keeps you on track so that it's essentially forcing you to give specific reasons. So I'm going to go through that example again, but without the pauses, without the headers, if you like. So it's there on the screen for you to have a read. And I'm just going to go through. So tell me about a time that you solved a problem to a tight deadline. We're due to be delivering a presentation to a group of 30 interested industry players about our new product, and Stuart, the guy due to deliver it, got stuck on a train from Birmingham. It's my responsibility to find an alternative so it didn't reflect badly on the company and we didn't waste the opportunity. I spoke to the event organisers to find out if they could change the running order. They agreed, so we bought ourselves some time. I contacted Susan, another member of the team, who had a push could step in, and she agreed to drop what she was doing and head over to the event. Stuart couldn't make it to the meeting on time, but we explained the problem to the delegates and Susan's presentation went well. A bit rough around the edges, but well received. Stuart managed to make it for the last 15 minutes and answer questions, and as a result, we gained some good contacts, at least 2 of which converted into paying clients. So, before your interview, think about what competency-based questions you might be asked and use the STAR technique to come up with some answers. Remember, make them quantifiable. Now, we do have some example questions available as well. So again, if you're interested in seeing some of those, drop me a message and I'll gladly send them over to you. So, interview's done. All right, now, what do you do next? Get in touch with your recruiter. After interview, it's so important to call your recruiter as soon as you can. They'll be keen to get your feedback, and the sooner they do, the sooner they can call the client. If you'd forgotten to mention something or ask questions, now's the time to let your recruiter know, whilst there's still a chance to influence the outcome. Okay? Talk to your partner, your friends, your family about the interview and how it went, and write a list of pros and cons. Especially in today's economic climate, it can be tempted to accept the first offer that comes along, just to potentially regret it further down the line. So just make sure you're making the right decision. Again, speak to your recruiter about any concerns you might have before making a final decision, and involve the family. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation part of this workshop. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for putting up with my technical problems at the beginning of this session. Now it's over to you. If you have any questions about slides that I've already gone through, or interviews in general, please put them in the chat box and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Okay, so Nick is asking, and it's not a stupid question, absolutely not. Video on. He had a bad experience when he was the only one with the video on. Yes, I'd always put the video on. Ultimately, they want to see you and how you react. I mean, it's fairly poor show for the interviewer not to put video on. I mean, there's nothing stopping you asking them to see, asking them if their video is working. It's a two-way street. I mean, ultimately, you've got to impress, but they've got to do the same again, because if you get good at video interviewing, you should have a few options. So, yeah, it should be fairly unusual, that experience, Nick, but I would just say, if you feel comfortable asking them to put their video on, do so. If not, just stomach it up and then speak to the recruiter afterwards. Ask if there's a reason why they didn't share video. It's kind of intimidating, isn't it? Oh, they had technical problems, did they? Okay. So it's one of those things. I think if you can maintain their professionalism and just do your best to get through it. Hopefully the next time you speak to them, if you get through it, they'll be able to have a video, or you might even go to a face-to-face interview. So I hope that helps, Nick. How far back can you get the examples from? Yeah, if it's relevant experience and it can be transferred to the question, it doesn't really matter how long ago it was, as long as you can talk confidently about it. And to anyone on the call that is at the early stage of their career, or they're yet to graduate, obviously it's going to be difficult to take direct examples. So whatever is relevant, and that's the great thing about STAR technique, is that the questions aren't specifically aimed at a point in the job description. They're looking for, one, how you react to the the question and kind of how you structure your answer. If there's an element where there's client facing, they're going to want to see that you're confident in kind of thinking on your feet. So as long as it's relevant, it doesn't really matter. I hope that helps, Peter. Nick's asking, what is negative body gestures? So I'm going to say kind of slumped. I'm going to lean him back. Like that. Don't do that. It's just be attentive. Kind of sit up straight if you can, or lean forward. Kind of. So long as you've got your face and smile. Anything that isn't that. Backgrounds. So on Zoom, you can choose a virtual background. I mean, on here, if I click off this, oh yeah, there's the final page. So they're my contact details, by the way. So I'm just going to click off this. How do I stop the share? There we go. The big red button to stop share. So if I'll just show you my background. So there's my background. I have put a big green sheet up, but then on Zoom you can choose to have a different background, just to make it a bit more professional. I mean, I do my work from my conservatory. It's got my bike in here. It's got everything. So I tend to just go for the standard background. But if you've got a nice, if you're kind of got a nice bookcase, or you can position props if you like to create talking points. So, but I'd steer clear of the kind of the overly busy backgrounds, like you can have a jungle or flowing water or something. I'd keep it fairly straightforward. If you're going to go for a virtual background like clouds or grey or something like that. Yeah, I hope that helps. And yeah, Peter, you don't need a green screen behind you. You can just, it does a pretty good job. Zoom does of kind of figuring out where you are, but you are right, it does make it a bit blurry. And so I've got the green screen. To be honest, I'm going to use it for some personal projects as well. So I thought I'd try it out on this. So there we go. Thank you again for joining me. I'd love to hear your feedback and success stories as well. If this has helped, please do get in touch. That'd be absolutely